And we are live. Good afternoon from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada on Let's Talk Real Talk on Parental Alienation and Family Domestic Abuse with my host here, Andy Martens. And we have a special guest as well, Johnny Szabo, who is an ABA therapist, and he will be talking about what that means and what that will involve in our today's conversation. Thank you for joining us today again, Andy. We are so grateful to have you. And while I talk about, or while we talk, I'm going to get you to ask Johnny some questions while I share this podcast to all the media platforms I have out there on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. And I would like all alienated parents and grandparents, targeted children, and all to share this program because it's going to be very informative and things that we need to know before we step into the family courtrooms on what could happen to our children and to the targeted parent. So thank you again, gentlemen, for coming. Andy is from Sault Ste. Marie. Johnny is from Florida, USA. Well, we just lost Andy. So I guess I'm going to ask you, Johnny, on what you would like to discuss today and how we can benefit from what you can teach us. So again, thank you on this Tuesday, September 17, 2024. Go ahead, Johnny. Tell us
Thank
about
you so
yourself.
much. Yeah, happy to be here, and definitely what I like to share is a different approach and hopefully some helpful perspective of how to deal with parental alienation, if we can be that specific. So I have a background in psychology. I'm a psychology graduate. I'm also have a background in public safety, and I have been a security consultant over the years, while I'm also an ABA therapist. Currently, I'm in my master's program, and hopefully, I'm aiming to be a PhD in clinical psychology. But obviously, we're talking about a little bit too early about it. I'm also a alienated, I would say, targeted parent who experienced the parental alienation tactics through false allegations and all the other typical alienating behavior from my ex-wife. Um, what makes my story a little bit different is that I was able to somehow have the ability to recognize the signs really early when our daughter was really little, and I was able to um, apply some early intervention, which allowed me to mitigate the impact of the toxic tactics, and I was actually able to so far reverse the terrible outcome, what we usually hear, what happens with alienated parents.
Mm.
So that's in the short version. Obviously, I can expand any of that, but you guys ask me which direction should I go, or what would be better serve everybody who's watching this show.
Go ahead, Andy.
Well, Johnny, how quickly did you recognize it? And, we've always brought this to
Yes,
other shows. You got
yes.
involved with this woman, but how quickly did you realize it wasn't the way you needed to go?
Great question. And there is no straight answer for that, and it might be a little bit holistic answer for this question. But what I can tell you is that parental, from my experience and from others, parental alienation tactics usually a consequence, and it's a multi-layer problem. That means that the other person is already most likely uh, doing something in the family dynamic which is already which is already toxic. So you're already in that loop where you have to educate yourself, and you already put in the situation when you need to like understand what's going on. So you already have this trauma drive, and trying to, most of us trying to over intellectualize what those actions are. And somehow, when I was trying to understand what happened during my divorce, what happened, what part I did wrong, what kind of responsibilities I really have to take. So part of the self-development journey what I went into after my divorce, I was able to get some of the behavior signs of my daughter shifting from me being really close to her as a dad, have a great relationship, absolutely involved, and that behavior started to shift towards the mom. And I really didn't understand why, since nothing changed at my end. There is no abuse, there is really nothing. And that shift was really really sudden, and that shift was really how can I say, really deep. So it's, I wouldn't say it happened one day to the another, but it really happened in a short period of time, which was probably to me one of the main indicator, like what is really going on in my daughter's life. And we're talking about, she was 2 3 years old, you know, so they didn't had she didn't have the tool to express herself. She didn't have the vocabulary, she didn't talk yet, but through the behavior and through the genuine connection what we had, I had to go into and have my curiosity fulfilled with what is really going on. And over the years, obviously, all the signs what was suggested that there is alienation happening, that it unfortunately just become really evident. So it's obvious it's not a short time. It didn't happen in a short time, but when the alienation became
So,
severe,
in other
then
words, Johnny, to make it short,
yeah.
you picked the wrong person, and it was not the ideal person you picked to get married with. Is that correct?
Yeah, you know, I would be very careful with that, and it might be also like a little bit spiritual approach. But I think I I don't want to say that I picked the wrong person, because that time who I was, that was all of my knowledge and all of my heart, that was a good decision. Now that's a different story when you realize, you know, the reality and the truth years after, and you see the real who those person really
Well,
are,
the deal
obviously.
is this, that parental alienation is a scamming process. I've talked to Mary about this, her ex, and other people on this show. They never really loved the other person to begin with. It's
That's
just
true.
one big scam.
But not everybody, Andy, is in the same position. There are people in love and they say, oh,
Mhm.
we'll never get divorced. But here, 5 years down the road, they're
Yeah.
divorced. You know, you think they were the model
Yeah.
couple. It happens to anybody and everybody. You know, some other beautiful person comes along, boom, they're having affairs. Doesn't matter man or woman. You
Well,
know,
it's hard
one
to
bad
discipline.
insult, the
Yeah.
other parent, the other person
Mhm.
will seek revenge because you insulted
Yeah.
them. I mean,
Exactly.
you cannot say we pick, you know, like I didn't pick
No, you didn't.
partner. I was forced into my partner. My partner picked me to keep him, you know, out of prison. So there's all kinds of reasons out there for us to be where we are today. And the realistic thing about it is getting out in time before the children come along, before the children get damaged. This is what we need to focus on, basically. Because once we are stuck with an alienating person or an abusive person, that is the struggle.
That's true. And not very many people get out in time because they always think that the person will
Change.
yeah, change.
Right. What do you think, Johnny? I mean,
Abs- uh,
basically,
abs-
that's what's happening.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, when you are in the midst of the relationship, and we need to also acknowledge that the phenomena of parental alienation comes from a person who's probably have other underlying, I wouldn't say mental condition, because I have to be really careful with that, with that,
Right.
because we are nobody to assess
Diagnose.
someone.
Yes.
But the fact is, a common knowledge, you can see that person most likely have high narcissistic traits. We can say this without a degree. We can say this without being a doctor. So technically, the parental alienation being triggered by you or by an event. So how the relationship evolves from the really early stage when you just meet, and you are loved, and everything seems fine and everything seems great, and you think, you know that person, that person is your best friend, and you're ready to have the family, or you just have a kid accidentally, and you just decide, okay, we're gonna try. So what we need to understand, those are really different layers and dynamics in the complex family dynamic. So when the divorce happens, something changes, not just the family dynamic itself, but obviously everything changes inside us, because obviously we are also some level, some extent responsible. I'm not saying for the alienation, but in generally speaking, there is no black and white. So
Right.
technically, how people deal with the pain, the loss, and Mary, you are absolutely right in a lot of settings. Basically, this is a never-ending cycle of the punishment. Whatever these people who are not healthy, who have a lot of most likely childhood trauma passed down to generation to generation. And I could refer so many studies out there when they see, and Mary, again, back to you, is that the typical trauma is passing down generation by generation. So you can see the grandma or the grandpa or even their grandparents, and you can see the pattern. And generational trauma has a manifestation in many forms, which parental alienation is one. The reason why, because after divorce, when everything's settled, there is nothing else than a toxic person can hold against you other than your most precious, person in the world, which is your child. But
Absolutely.
what is really, really scary about it, and what it makes it evil, is the absolute zero awareness and zero consciousness what these people can do. Because if like, they just don't have the ability to comprehend the suffering and the pain, and they honestly, I don't think they even care. So technically, in a regular terms, they hate you more than they love their own child. Otherwise, they would do better decisions, or they will be able to somehow, I wouldn't say change, because it also depends on your personal understanding in life in general. But why do we see across the board that these people just you cannot talk to them? It doesn't matter how many mental health professionals will tell them, this is not good, this is not healthy, and that's why we find ourselves in the family court. Because no matter what you do, no matter how much into, no matter how much money you have, no matter again how many professionals clearly say that this is not okay and you need to do something, you need to go and you need to heal, you need to reflect, these people has absolutely zero openness to get the constructive criticism, because they just, and again it goes back to their narcissistic personality traits. They just think they're great, and they may highly function in other areas in their life, and obviously they have the super cycle as well. So what I'm saying is that uh, through the alienation, you are an enemy and you become an enemy. And many often, that one of the reason why, and again, what I just from my personal experience and others, is that because sometimes you are the only person who knows the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to combat that person or that situation taking the control over constantly in your child's mind, that basically that's the dysfunction, that's the personality dysfunction, because they think that's gonna protect them. So the alienating behavior in some level, it's almost like a self-shielding behavior. And again, it's just based on a lot of studies, what try to dig into to the root cause, how really the parental alienation forms. And we can over intellectualize it, like what kind of levels the parental alienation has, or what any other toxic behaviors goes hand in hand with alienation. But the bottom line is, you are the enemy and another person is using the children as a weapon, which is for a fairly healed person. That's why it is really hard to have these phenomena understand with other parties, including probably, unfortunately, the courts as well. Because a healthy person, how do you comprehend that? How can you imagine that somebody will undermining the relationship to another parent, even though if you say I'm happy because I'm divorced and that that marriage was not good at all, and even another person might be not a good person, but still you as a parent, somehow biologically you have to seek your child's comfort and safety. And they just seem to not have that all. They don't have the ability to understand that what they cause, and they truly believe what they do is the best interest of the child. And this is where we can shift actually into the court, because the court, this is what they say, that's always based on the best interest of the child. But
Yeah,
it really depends, how do you define that.
that's right.
So
It's because it's
some,
been done to them. So
yes, yes,
they believe that it is the solution, it is the
yeah.
right thing, and that they are always right and in control.
Yes, yes, but again, going back to the psychology, to applying the coercive control, and having the control, or wanting the control over every little aspect of outsider circumstances, and you want to control every situation, every people around you. That's not a healthy being. That's not. It's not. Just imagine their mind, like when they have to plan on that, when you're doing the every interaction with their children is aimed to somehow hurt another parent, openly or covertly. But we all see the effects on the children, and just imagine that life. I mean, it's like I said, like a healthy mind. I don't think we ever going to be able to understand at all. And I
No,
think Sherlock Holmes said, to understand the psychopath, you have to be a psychopath. So you just don't understand. You can learn about the rest of your life, but you cannot comprehend. You may realize the tendencies, but you cannot. If you're not a psychopath, you cannot think like that. And that goes to the parental, those parents who are really just there to hurt. And obviously, when somebody talk to them, it's really scary, because they really think they do a good job, and
right.
the
And
good
if you're
job it
trying to
means.
sorry, and if you're trying to convince them, say I was a therapist trying to convince the alienator that they're wrong, they will seek revenge on the therapist.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
wrong,
exactly,
I'm
yes,
right.
yes, yeah.
So you
And
can't, it doesn't matter who talks to them,
yeah,
even a judge. They will argue with the judge and say, no, 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 this is how
yeah,
it went and
yeah.
this is how it is. And all these lies are true. Basically,
And
that's what they're saying, right?
yeah, yeah, and the another really, one of the hardest part, I believe, to counter the alienating behavior and strategies, is that somehow they always 2 steps ahead. And the reason why, because we are always being forced to defend ourselves, so we act out of defense. And when you actually can be proactive and see the pattern and be prepared what's coming, this is what I can say you can get a little control over, because that other parent, whatever that parent is going to do, is going to be harmful, hurtful, whatever. But again, they always a couple of steps ahead. They control every aspect of the outcome, or of the events and the situations, what may not even happen yet, but they already
Right,
have a plan. They
right.
already have something to use against you, and they will find the evidence, and they if they don't have the situation, then they will create one, and this is where
Oh,
the
for
false
sure.
allegations comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And any inclination of a child wanting to be with the targeted parent, that alienating parent will step in and make sure
Mm,
that child doesn't get
it's
to
not.
see the
Yeah.
targeted parent, because the child will be punished. The child will be ostracized, criticized, humiliated. And then, the alienating parent will say, you can't go see your mom or dad because he or she
Whatever.
is a
Yeah.
drug
Hmm.
addict or an alcoholic. They will abuse you. They'll lock you in the room. So you're putting fear into a child before they even get outside
Yes.
that door. And they wonder why the kids are freaking in the car when that
Hmm.
alienating
Yeah.
parent is going to drop that child off to the targeted parent. And then the alienator's got the cameras. See, my kid's freaking
Yes.
because they don't
Yeah.
want to
Oh
go
yeah.
see the other parent. Now,
Hmm.
when a targeted or an alienated parent does that and says to the judge, look,
Hmm.
that judge should quickly say, oh, wow, you've groomed that child really well to hate that parent. So let's
Yes.
take that child away from you for the next 90 days and see how the child comes back to you once it's reunited with the other parent. There's so many
Absolutely.
solutions out there, but nobody's willing to do it. So when we have therapists who finally step up and say, yes, this child has been brainwashed and enmeshed with the alienating parent, these children are like gone through like a cult. They've been, so conditioned by these one parent. It's always one parent that can do it. Only one leader in a cult, right? So it's that cult leader that's brainwashing these kids to hate, to abuse, to be self-loathing, to be abusive themselves. They become the alienate or the narcissistic child, psychopathic. They're learning all these bad habits, and that's wrong.
Abs- no, absolutely agree absolutely, and I like to add to it that this is a multi-level, multi-dimensional battlefield. So first, obviously, it starts with that interrelationship, mainly with yourself, and how do you respond, and how much control you can put on your actions. Then you are triggered, and when you have to go to the defense, or you get the allegations, first of all, how do you respond to that? That's number one. And another thing is also, how do you shield your child against the evil, where they might not have yet that they're not capable or ready, or by age or by any other circumstances, to really understand that what is really happening. So it's a spiritual welfare just right there. So that's the second line. The third line, obviously, when there is a mental health professional or more involved, there is always another side where the mental health professionals also involved. So it's also like having two different groups, and doing the competency kind of against them. And the third level is obviously on the family court, because most cases, if it's severe, not most, probably all the cases will end up in the family court. So also you have to have the knowledge, and you have to have those resources, how you combat each of those layers in the way where you would be able to predict the best outcome, mainly for your child. And obviously, we were talking about it, like across the board, most of the stories are so similar, and the behaviors are so similar. You can start an event with what happened, and I can finish that sentence, just anybody else who went through in this, including also, if we would talk about the narcissistic people, we immediately talking about the same thing, because it barely happens with everybody almost in the same level. However, the technicality is always different, situations different. And again, I like to take responsibility for a lot of things. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that for other people, but to my healing journey, the number one step before everything started was I had to face to my demons and my childhood trauma and everything what I've been through. So basically, I had the trauma drive, which led to me to achieve to acquire the knowledge and the achievement and the openness mainly to see if there is any problem or dysfunction or what's going on, what I can do on and what is on me. So this is just a side note that definitely helped me. And now years later, that's what I think it's a key, and this is how I can serve our daughter to give her the tools to coping, by herself, not by force, which is really important, I think. But I'm really proud of her because I think I was able to give her tools and those wisdom in her little level. Still, she's still 6 years old, but she's really great to stand up for herself, and she has a great self-awareness. So now she's questioning a lot of things which doesn't feel good in her heart. Then she's going to ask, and this is including everybody, not just me or her mother, but any people who trying to give her like the vibes what she's not really resonating. And then this is, I think this is, I know it sounds a little spiritual, but I think this is a great tool to have for our children, that feel what's right and feel what's wrong, and be strong, and ask the questions, and
Right,
don't be afraid. So
right. And when it comes to our children, we can see when they're suffering. We could see it in their eyes when they're
yeah,
fearful,
yes,
when they're
yes,
alienated. They got that cold, dark, deep hole in their eyes. Their smile is no longer a smile. They're so
exactly.
withdrawn.
Yeah. Yes, yes,
So
and there are signs, obviously, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but yes, I agree with you. So this is energetic level, in a sense of, especially with smaller children, their first language is energy. So it's like whatever they feel from you, whatever they feel from another environment or from another person. If you really tuned into your child, you get that. You get that feeling what you are saying. Yes.
right,
So we feel
right.
that.
Because I know when my kids, before they got alienated, they were happy, they were joyful, they were so excited to walk out the
Hmm.
door and do a new adventure. But when they
Yeah.
got alienated, they took those wonderful moments and turned them into something bad. Like, for
Yes.
example, the music lessons they had, they loved it. They were the
Hmm.
ones that
Hmm.
asked for it. So they got put into, whatever, piano, vocal, drums, guitar, dancing. They were very active.
Hmm.
To being in the judges or the lawyer's chamber, wherever they were, because they wrote out a list of things that they were forced to do. And one of them was, she put us in these stupid music classes.
Yes. Yes.
What?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
of a sudden. And then when
Hmm. Hmm.
we had music teachers that came to the house. I have 3 kids. They played together. They learned how to play together as a band, as a unit,
Hmm.
different
Yeah.
instruments. Not many kids get that opportunity, but mine did. And when the teacher
Hmm.
came to the door the day after I was falsely arrested, she wrote letters to the judge saying, when I came to teach
Hmm.
the children how to play music, father slammed the door and said there will be no more music in this house. So here the kids fed
Yeah.
off of it, saying, Mom put us in these stupid music classes. I
Yeah.
spent tons of thousands of dollars on instruments, and because they wanted it. So was I a bad parent because I gave them what they wanted? I'd be a bad parent if I didn't give them what they wanted. So, us parents that are being
Yeah.
alienated are getting condemned for doing the right thing. And now our
Yes. Yeah.
children are deprived. They're,
Hmm.
they have no social skills, they have no life skills.
Hmm.
Everything was taken from them, because an alienating parent is not going to be there for the kids 24/7. When I got divorced, and the judge says, let's see who's got the best interest of the children. So I was always a stay-home mom for them in the last couple years. in their teenage life to be alienated, and the father decided to take a job from 3 to 11. So the kids come home from school at 3, they got nobody there.
Mhm.
So
I agree. Yeah.
he made it so that the kids are left alone. A 15, 17, and 18-year-old, you can't leave teenagers alone like that with no guidance, no support. So they became alcoholics. They had parties in the house constantly. Police were at the door, but yet the police couldn't come and say, Mom, come get your kids. What the police did was they kept me away from my kids. And that's wrong. People need to be educated. Judges, lawyers, doctors, therapists, police, they all need to be on the same page with this. But yet they're not.
Yes. Mhm.
So, our kids are damaged because of them. I could truly say that, because had somebody helped me 19 years ago, instead of saying, oh, you'll never see your kids again, this was the office of the children. They didn't know me from a hole in the ground, and set an appointment up for me to sit down with my children and them. My children didn't show up. And she said, you'll never see your children again. But had you been the one that didn't show up, you'd be in prison. So why is it one over the other? Because they're teaching the children black and white, one bad, one good. This is all alert behavior these kids had to turn to within matter of hours, because they're cornered. They're cornered by the alienating parents. Say, if you go with the mom or the dad, you'll never see me again. You'll never have any money. You'll be homeless like your mother or your father.
Yeah.
This is real hard abuse, because even to tell us as an adult, I'll kill you if you leave me, or you'll be left penniless if you leave me. These are hard on adults. Never mind children. Children can't register stuff like that until, well, you would know, their brains don't, you know,
Mhm.
get strong until about 25 to 35. Because I know what I was like at 25. I just woke up and said, oh, wow, I'm with an abuser. How do I get out of this? After
Yeah.
being with them for, 6 years.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it takes a long time for us to register what we are dealing with, because we've been so traumatized.
In many cases in romantic relationships, as well as parental relationships or co-parent relationships, what you're referring is basically the cognitive dissonance. So the cognitive dissonance is where one person is trying to paint a false reality to the another person, and basically that happens when somebody in the relationship emotionally abusive, because you don't even know what's going on. You just have this really stress, full of anxiety, but you don't really understand why, and you're just trying to tell a positive story to yourself. It's almost like you wanted to see what's behind the door, but it's like no matter what you try, you cannot go through that door, and that door is basically the all the stories and all the whatever tactics that let's say abuser uses. But unfortunately that also translates to the kids. So basically the cognitive dissonance really kicks in when the kids has a divided understanding and perspective of the reality, which is mainly divided between the two parents and the two households, and it's completely different. Now also one of the things what I like to address, what you mentioned about going back to the what the children or kids liked one time, and another time they just said that was terrible. So one of the consequences of the manipulation is really that then they going back in time, that they rewrite the memories. And we thrive from memories. This is where our bonding and connection comes in as a human being. Even between animals is, I mean, human and animal, that my owner going to bring me for a really nice walk every day, twice in the morning and the afternoon. So even the dogs are tuned into it. So
Hmm.
our how we create the memory, that's the foundation of basically the relationship. So also another evil part of that, when constantly the manipulation and the psychological abuse and all the coercive control, everything happening, unfortunately the children forced to really started to see the another person as a bad person, and they connecting all the events and all the good memories they have that person, and it just put under this shadow, like, okay, it wasn't that good, we went to the water park, but yeah, now I remember it wasn't really, that cool, or that ice cream wasn't that good, or the music what we have been doing for years, well, I didn't really like that, those are, and again, if you think about it, those are taking away the children's childhood, and technically almost like the whole life, and just the one parent is just wanted to like control even their memories, like every little breath they're taking, they just want to control, and even it goes back to the time. That's why unfortunately a lot of stories what I hear, it's a never ending story. Any consultation I had with forensic psychologists or attorneys, experts who are really have done some decent peer-reviewed research in parental alienation, what they say is that that's a never-ending cycle. So
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, it is just and you guys know, because there are grandparents out there, grandparents. That means another generation suffering from whatever whoever started, long time ago and still going on. So this is a major, I think, a really major issue, and we are still in the beginning as a collective, because we're still trying to talk about it, and we're still trying to, when somebody's going through something, we try to put it out there for other people to listen to it and educate themselves, and hopefully they can take any value out of it. Like, what saved me is really listen to other people, and going through my academic work, that was kind of like a lucky coincidence. And also later on, obviously my ABA therapy skills, when I was able to shape some behaviors. But what I'm trying to say is, still unfortunately the word is not there yet to understand. So you can go into the school, stand up for your child and say, well, that's a parental alienation, and that's why my child experiencing those behaviors. Still, nobody's going to listen to you,
No,
unfortunately.
no. And
So
and
it's
then
still nothing.
that's right. And then when it comes to the time when the child gets picked up because they've done some kind of crime, who are they going to call? The alienator ain't going to come. So when they do call the targeted parent that hasn't seen the child in years, maybe decades,
Hmm.
to identify a dead body or to, bail them out of jail. I mean, we just had a mom that had been alienated from her child for over 6 years, and they found her dead last week, where the alienated stepfather wouldn't let the mother have her own children. And he's now in prison. He got, they got him, but the child is gone, 22 years old. I mean, she never even had a chance to grow, to become somebody, right? And the confusion that these kids are growing up with. So when they get into suicides, murder suicides, shootings, it's
Hmm.
because they've been psychologically abused, or they miss a parent, they're getting back at another parent, or another kid made fun of them because they didn't have a parent. They're in CPS, there's so many
Hmm.
scenarios out there that our children are suffering with. And if they do get into trouble, the police don't know how to handle them, and then they look at the targeted parent as if they were scum, neglectful, and all this other stuff.
Hmm. And
Meanwhile, we've been fighting for years to get these kids back. But
that
when it's too late, what do we do?
I, honestly, I don't have answer for that, because when it's too late, the damage is already done. But generally speaking, the complex emotional and psychological abuse and demand, it's going to be manifest somewhere, somehow, sometime on anybody's life, so especially, of course, we're talking about children. So even young adults or adult children, they unfortunately they will have this burden rest of their lives. And it doesn't matter if it's a parental alienation or it's just a dysfunctional co-parenting dynamic. That is already, if you think about it, and we take a couple steps back, having mom and dad separated and going through the divorces, it's already most of the time is traumatic event, most of the time, unfortunately. Even if the two parent trying to make as smooth as is possible, and let's say they have a good co-parenting relationship and they have good households, it is still, if you think about it, it is just so common. We don't even flinch anymore. Like when
Right.
you go to you go to a school meeting, barely see a mom and dad holding each other hands there for the kids. Badly. I don't want to say numbers, but I think everybody know, can just look around in their neighborhood and environment. So it's already two families. It's already, the stepmom and the stepdad and the stepsister for two families, which could be great if everybody really supports each other.
Right.
Should be this way, but it's already for the children's life is already divided no matter what. Now you have to put the top of that, people with traumas and projecting to their own children. It's already another level of the children to deal with, and of course it goes up and up as how much abused another person on the spectrum, if we can say that, exposing the child for. So it's hard. It is really hard. That's why I'm always trying to quote unquote survive, is I'm always checking in on myself. Like I have my own rules about myself, to being as strong as I can, regardless of any situation, being not reactive, and most likely keeping my positive and loving energy to my daughter in under every circumstances. So I'm trying to. It's real hard. Obviously, it never. It didn't start it like that. Obviously, the first time I didn't know how to handle myself when I realized what's happening. Obviously, but what I can really say is, unfortunately, is just such a profound sentence, but it's not what happens in is basically what counts is how do you deal with that. So it's
Right.
technically your actions and how you support still your children. And I just feel extremely, for every parent out there like you who couldn't be there for the kids. But what I can say is that, from the second you are a parent, you are a parent. So
Right.
even though you don't have like a contact with your children, or you have limited contact, what I can say is that you still the parent, and you still
Always.
try to do the best as you can to support your children, and trying to keep them safe. And I know how it
Right.
sounds, because if you're not there, you're not there, but still.
I just want to comment on how you were saying about going to school, and you've got parents, you got the mom and dad with their new families, and one sitting at one end of the room, the other one
Yeah.
sitting at the other. But what's even worse is when you have the child that's playing a sport or some
Mhm.
kind of music activity or whatever, they both come to see them, and one parent set of parents is on one end, the other is the other.
Yeah.
You've got the alienating parent distracting the child from looking at the targeted parent,
Hmm.
making sure that all eyes are on them so that the child can't see the targeted parent cheering for them, happy for them, or anything, right? And then, they get to go home with the alienated parent, and then, oh, did you see them sitting up there? Well, I tried to,
It's
get your attention so you wouldn't have to look at them, so that you would still do good. They're embedding horrible thoughts into these kids. It doesn't matter where these kids are anymore or
it's
what
it's
age.
it's always a competition. So when you
Yes.
share the same time and space, whatever reason, because you have to go to the graduation party, whatever, then there is always a competition. And it's just you can feel it. And regardless if we wanted to label behaviors, what another person is doing, what another person is not doing, the fact is that your child is still in the middle. So no matter what kind of covert behavior or messages or signals being sent to the child, that's already bad, because you are there to support them whatever they need. But just imagine, again, go back, just imagine how the child feels when, yeah, mom is sitting there with the family in the left side and dad sitting on the right side. Now you know just imagine their little soul, and how their brain, how does it really function.
They can't
Again,
focus.
regardless.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
can't focus on what they're supposed to be doing because they're watching both sets of parents.
And this is just the front of the public, so you can
Yeah,
you can imagine what happens, at home in the car. And
exactly.
most of the covert alienating behavior, which is, I think, the most dangerous behavior, it's what happens is that the alienating parent brainwashes her or his cycle. So technically, they also uh, conditioning their own environment. That includes teachers, doctors, they new family. So they all agreement. So when your child over time goes to that house, unfortunately what happens, and this is really really hard to realize and overcome, that child is marinating on that environment when everybody is basically giving the child to the suggestions that, you are safe here, you are not safe there. And again, this is just further contributes to the child's, anxiety and the PTSD syndromes, and all of the
That's right. It's
manifestation that comes.
dumping fuel onto the fire, making it
Yeah.
worse.
Yes, absolutely, pretty
Yeah,
much.
so the children's brains are fried, they're confused, they're tired, they're exhausted. It's hard to keep up with an alienating person or a narcissistic person because you're always on your toes. You're walking on
Mhm.
eggshells as a spouse. Imagine the children. They can't play, they
Yes,
can't
yes.
laugh.
Mhm, mhm.
They cry, they get ostracized because they're crying. You're a boy, boys don't cry. Stuff like that. It is so hard for these kids to grow up with one parent saying that to them and then
Absolutely.
having to be with them forever. I mean, I'm going through it. I was alienated for 40 years from my dad. And I heard the same thing. Your dad's no good. Your dad's this. Your dad's that. Well, let me make up my mind.
Mhm.
Not,
Well, that's
don't make
that
up my
that
mind for me.
yes, yeah, absolutely. And that's the reason why it is so important to be aligned with ourselves, and getting grounded. But when we have to stand up from trauma, and we have to stand up from the place where we were knocked down, it is one of the hardest things. But there is also something in the pain when you are, I wouldn't say lucky enough, but for now, just let's say that if you're lucky enough and you staying down the ground to until you found what caused you knocked down emotionally, then what I think is that emotional muscle, and it can be trained, and we can train ourselves to really aiming to be such a good person, such a good parent. And that's also one of my leading idea about my life and myself, is that I want to dominate my own life as high as, no matter what the other evil forces trying to do, it is just not going to be enough. And so far, it seems to be working with all the love and compassion. And again, nobody is perfect. I don't want to be look more than I am, but having a good grip on your own life and emotions and behaviors and responses, and just keep learning and keep show up to your kid. I think that's the best thing what's going to pay off. But
Right.
again, I do understand that, I'm in, quote unquote, in the lucky situation because of my early intervention. But sometimes when we realize this, we already get a final judgment that, okay, your kids are been taken away from you, or you have 4 hours limited supervision
You're
per
court
10
ordered.
years
Yeah.
now. How do you do that? Like,
Yeah.
what from that point, you know how do you pick yourself up? And or false allegations, like how, like that, the tremendous amount of effort and time and energy and money and everything. It just goes to that to defend yourself. And again, what kind of
Right.
strategies you have, it's depends on your ability to understand where you are at, and you
Right.
know.
False allegations are taken over in the court system. Family court system is the only courts that allow a lie to be presented against the other parent. So these judges prey on the lies because that brings them back to court. And these children that are in the court system for decades, years, decades, whatever, it's $350,000 over their heads that the
Yes.
courts are making. And now the courts are no longer in house, they're all on Zoom. So you got all these courthouses standing empty that were profited from our children that are, either dead or they become abusers for decades, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there should be a thing for these kids to come back and say to the courts, look, you traumatized me. It's your fault. You took me away from my mom or my dad. We need to
Yeah.
bring these historical cases back so that the court system can really see why there's so many people in prisons,
Mhm.
so many people committing suicides, murders. This is not because the child was raised healthy. It was because the child was raised from healthy. They were taken
Ye-
away all their health, their love,
yeah.
stability.
The main disconnection between seeing the reality and trying to see objectively, from the family law perspective, is that we're talking about a mental health situation, and we're talking about regarding to the law and the family court. So those two, it just is not a match. A judge has to rely on the evidences what the attorneys providing to them, and they have like 10 minutes to see what's going on there. And the mental health professionals also, they I wouldn't say they are in the dark. I cannot label that, but they also don't have the understanding fully that they have a big toll in the outcome of the children. So if the mental health professional is incompetent to even understand that parental alienation, it is an abuse, but there's nothing they can do. And we can talk about the DCF, CPS, or even the sheriff office who is doing the investigations, or child abuse, psychological child abuse. That is, nobody can do anything literally. The CPS or the investigative party, what they do, they just refer the whole case to a forensic psychologist. And again, your child's entire life depends on one person's understanding of parental alienation, and obviously any other else abuse, and the assessments and the forms what they do. So that is a disconnection. And until there's not going to be a common platform, or it's not going to be more professionals involved and more education, what we all advocating for, I don't know how this issue can resolve. However, what I can tell you, I cannot share too much, and this is the stuff that I cannot talk about because I'm still in the litigation. But although I hear most of the stories from the court and judges turned out really negative, from my personal experience, I wouldn't say I have positive experience, but what I seen in my cases, and through the allegations and through the emergency hearings, and the constant motions, what my ex is constantly doing, is that the judges, because we had two judges, this is the second judge so far, they handled the cases really objectively. So they showed me that I'm open. I have to see both of the parties. I have to see both of the stories. Now, obviously, again, I cannot tell you the details, but so far what I experienced is the judges in my cases, they, let's put it this way, they saw through the situation. That's why probably I'm not in jail, but many of the stories, including you,
Yeah. Well,
happens.
The judges saw through mine as well, but they still, because the kids were 15, 17, and 18 and decided to go with the father. So the judge did say,
really hard.
he did call the father a conniving, scheming, manipulative liar and had no doubt he set me up, but he gets the house and kids.
Yes.
So, you know, these kind of situations,
Mhm.
a judge says something like that, the judge is wrong for allowing an abuser to continue to abuse, because look what happened. 19 years
So
later, they were brought
yes,
back
yeah,
to continue to abuse.
yes.
And, you know, so these judges have to be careful on how they present the evidence, because
Yes.
they call
Hmm.
the alienating parents evidence as evidence, and yet it's nothing but lies. And then when
Yeah.
when the targeted parent proves it with 100% evidence, the judge
Hmm.
still calls it lies. So, you know, they're not doing the proper job. So here is my question to you now. We're almost done. But
Hmm.
if there were cameras in the court, do you think your outcome would be a lot better than what it is today?
You know, and it might be a might be a triggering answer, okay? Because I'm always trying to take a couple of steps back, and I'm always trying to evaluate the stories and the situations through the court's eyes and the judge's eyes. And again, I'm not saying there are bad decisions out there. I'm not saying there are great judges. What I'm trying to say is, I believe the system and the tools what the judges and the family court and the attorneys use, it's not fully functioning to determine and reveal the truth. So what I'm trying to tell you, and then I will answer the question about the cameras, is that and this is not comes from me. I cannot tell how many professionals told me this, but what is really clear, that when a judgment is being made other than the statutes, and it goes to the guardian ad litem and goes to any professionals involved in a certain case, they have to have reference. Now, this, to me, that's the biggest thing. That means that you are an alienated parent. What do you have to show as an evidence? It doesn't matter if it's submissible. It doesn't matter what's the legal terminology. How do you present your case to a third party, to a person, against another person who trained the kid to make statements? How do you go against it? It's not the same leverage. So the professionals, again, including the judges, unfortunately, they have the two sides in front of them. So they have one side where the child clearly, says, doing statements, and you have another side where you say, I hear my child saying those statements, but those are happening because of the psychological abuse and all of those kind of things, but that's not tangible. That's why a good attorney's job would be to make your evidence tangible to and representable to the court, to the same level when another person is just doing the years and years of alienation, and your child is making statements, smaller child doing drawings, and obviously the other person is hiring a silver bullet therapist who is absolutely incompetent. And how do you go against that case? So when the judge see that, what I see is they don't have an option. They unfortunately, and many cases, and again, I'm not protecting them, but many cases they just don't have the ability to see. Like, they would tell you, give me more, because I believe you. Like in your case, they can give you the look when that judge understands, because the patterns and the behaviors you presented, those are clear signs. But unfortunately, going back to the law, I cannot. The judge may think I cannot put any law, or referring to any law, what is your position in the case, while there is another person and there is 15 16 statements, and all of them are submissible, and they can, and he can or she can, the judge can referring a clear statue why he or she made, that that judgment. Now, going back to the cameras, honestly, look, I think so many privacy and so many rights has been violated, and I agree with that.
But it's not for
Parents,
privacy rights. It's for accountability rights for the parent, the targeted parent, to say, look, you said this. Now you're
yeah,
saying this. So it's basically for our own notes. You know,
absolutely, yeah, yeah,
so that this is what I mean by cameras. I'm not talking about distributing them to, social media out there,
yeah.
because who wants to hear that you were, this and this and this, and you can't prove that you didn't do that or that or that. So
In
it's more for yourself, because there's so many things hidden in the family courts,
Yeah,
especially when the judge goes off record. When we know the judge is
yeah,
going off record, we know for a fact that that judge knew that alienating parent was the abuser. Because why would the judge say off record? Only to protect the abuser, not the targeted parent. So this is why I find cameras to be
I
very important.
I do agree with you on that, in the sense of, like, I do understand the 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 importance and the need for accountability, and you're right, because there are lot of stories where it is just so evident and so obvious, and how come, the judge, against every reasonable belief, and the person just made a final judgment, but nobody understands technically. So I do agree with that. However, is it going to happen? Honestly, I don't think so, because
Well,
that
they
would.
have them in the States. There's cameras in the courtrooms in the States. We had them in Canada. They took them out. We need
Mhm,
to bring them
mhm.
back. Why
Yeah,
did they
yeah.
take them out? Because they weren't making enough money.
My, yeah, I understand that, and I do have just, I do have an experience in that. So my first court hearing, after my first court hearing, I called, called the courthouse, and naively I was like, can I request the minutes, or whatever you want to call it, the notes, what
Transcript,
happened,
the
records?
transcript.
Yes, yes. And they said, in family hearings, we don't do it. And I
No,
was like,
we
but somebody
do.
was sitting, you guys do it. It was,
Yeah, we
it's,
do it. So
and it's
that's what
basically
I'm
that's.
saying. This is why we need it. They're hiding it
Yeah.
from you because you know that when you ask for it, you know something was wrong in it.
Well, it's not against the judge. It's again, but yes, it was some information for us and for my attorney, that we could have referred back to, the victims, the statements of witnesses, and that was really controversially, but obviously controversial. But the problem is, right now we cannot go back and, put it in our case, because there are no records. So it's like nothing. It never even happened. Like the
Well, that's
false
why we
statements,
need
and
it. And we
yeah,
need to
yeah.
show that it happened. And because our kids are going to come back at us years later and say, well, you owe me this or you owe me that because you didn't raise me. I want this and I want that. A lot of parents are getting killed by their children because they didn't get to spend time with them. I mean, we don't need any more damaged children in this world to come back on us
Uh,
after we fought tooth and nails for them. So if there's no evidence in the courts, how are our kids going to know we fought for them? Because many parents are
mhm.
dying before they get to see their kids again.
Yes, I agree. Look, I'm following a lot of alienated, now adult, um children who were alienated, and through their eyes, through their stories, you can, unfortunately, you can, uh, project how your children going to feel when they going to be a little bit more independent, and I think as a last result for many parents like you who really truly lost their children's soul, I would say, is the only last resort is to trust and the faith to believe that one day they will realize and they will come back. And this is what I see in a lot of support group. This is what they advocating to, you are still a parent, and there is a possibility that they will come back and they will ask what really happened. But the thing is that it's a lifetime. You
It
don't
is.
know what's going on in their life. You don't know what to. So again, you cannot control what you cannot control, unfortunately. So
That's right.
and
After
you just
40
need to
years,
stand.
I connected with my father. I mean, if I did, there's hope for others out there, but my
Mm,
father was on his deathbed. So
yeah.
I didn't want him to die before I got to see him. And when I did find him, he lived for another 5 years because I brought him joy, peace. He may have been in palliative care all those years, but I
Mm,
went to see him each week. I played my music for him. We forgave each other. We talked about what, laid in the future. It was a much better relationship then. He passed away in 2019, just before the COVID. But I I had I had a really pivotal moment when I found him. We didn't think about when we didn't see each other. We thought about today, tomorrow,
mhm.
so this is what we need to look forward to with our children, not what happened, because I don't blame my children for what happened, but I do blame them for going along with it. They were older. They weren't 4 or 5 years old. They
Mhm.
knew what they were doing. And to trash a loving mother over a mistress, it was totally wrong on their behalf, because now that they're adults, they're not good. They can't have a healthy relationship because all their relationships are falling apart because they knew what I went through. They're going through it, but they don't know how to talk about it. They've got partners that are cheating on them, having multiple relationships. That's because these kids were not, they didn't have a stable upbringing at the end of the divorce.
Yeah, yeah.
And
No, what
so,
what I can hope, I would say, is podcasts like yours, so more and more families and more people coming out to the public. Now we have internet, now we have this, they have the resources, so more voices will be heard across the, I would say, the globe, because this is not specific to the United States, this is not specific to any gender at all. This is really a big global issue, and more people voices will be heard, than more awareness will be raised, and hopefully by that more more young adults may going to be triggered to think about what really happened, and to giving the words out there. I think that's the best what what we can do, and that's why I also decided, and many other people decided, to really go, quote unquote, in the public and advocate, with the awareness of this is what happening. And I'm not saying you really want to hope that your children is going to see your videos, but look, what you put out there, it's there forever. So that is a possibility your children is going to do. I'm not saying use this as a messenger, but really helping and serving others who are in the same shoe, and that includes alienated children once they're going to be able to comprehend and they're going to step into a certain age. Hopefully they will ask questions, because again, go back to the normal state that every children not just deserve, but every children really biologically tuned into maintain the best relationship they can have with their parents, and that's regardless of age, as your
right.
story again reconnected with your dad.
Yeah.
So that's there, as a little sparkle of hope
Hope.
that this is just that this never dies. It doesn't matter how the other parent, what else that parent did. There is always a little sparkle. It is just, you cannot control it. You don't know. So
That's right. That's right. Well, we're over the hour here, so we're going to have to end this. Your last words for alienated parents out there that are going through it today, or not alienated parents, divorcing parents. What would be your words to them going through the family court system, or should they go through the family court system?
I was thought about this question, and the what I could say the best advice, other than just trying to stay strong. I can again. I know I might be a little bit more complicated, but I cannot give just one sentence. What I think is, man and woman, we we handle pain and trauma different way. So I think it cannot be one answer to suit for all, because tune into your resources, your capabilities, abilities, and quote unquote energy as a man and as a woman is going to be different. So the outcome is also maybe different. So I can talk about from men's perspective, and that would be probably the answer for your question. Is I refuse to be a victim. So when everything fall apart, that I was conscious enough to make this decision. If I'm going to let this um, destroy my life, or I'm going to let my ex taking control over, even though if I have limited contact with her, I refuse to not do that. So I refuse to be a victim, in the sense of, I choose to be present with my daughter. I choose to be a, a, a good person. I choose to be control my emotions. I choose to be concentrating on my life, building myself, bettering myself. So for man, what I can say is, it's really, it's not easy, it's the hardest thing, but it is a decision. You either can destroyed by this whole thing, or or you can made by this experience. And it's going to sound weird, but I went through, and I'm still going through, and now I think I became the person who who I always wanted to become, I think.
Right. Right.
And
Good
as
for
as a
you.
as a
Good.
parent, as a dad, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're fortunate to be in that position, because I didn't allow myself to be what he wanted me to be. I still stayed
Yeah.
who I was, true to myself.
Hmm.
I picked myself up off the curb. I lived in a shelter until the judge opened my accounts, gave me back my
Hmm.
money, gave me back my life. He didn't give me my children, but my children became over the age limit then. There was no more children. They were 18 and over, right? So I gave them the opportunity to come to me on their own. I wrote to them, I called them, I did everything I could to be a good mom, to keep them in my
Hmm.
life,
Hmm.
but they were pushed away through the family court system for 18 years, bringing me to court multiple times, not just once or twice. So I had to suck it up, be strong, to help others to go through this same thing that I'm going through, because I know once their children reach over 18, they're going to come knocking and say, look, you owe me this, you owe me that. But yet that parent needs to stay stronger, because now they're being contradicted. First they were bad, now they're being told, oh, you wanted nothing to do with me. Now that's the hardest part for us to deal with, but we are here
Look,
to help people
yes,
to
exactly.
overcome
And
that, to help them through the trials and tribulations, through all this. I had a very good therapist for a year before my trial began. He got me through all the hard parts. And when I came to the trial, I stood there strong for my kids. But, the The judge turned off my camera so the kids couldn't see me, and it was very hard to deal with that kind of way. But at least, I was strong behind the scene through the cameras, and I didn't fall apart. I didn't, do anything different than what I did 19 years ago in court. It was still the same. I maintained my innocence, my love,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I was
Yes.
always there. So when parents can do that and better themselves and do what they always wanted to do, will bring back their life, rejuvenate them to help their kids as well at the same time. Because I'm not sure if everybody talks about what they did as a child to their children and say, oh, I skipped rope or I did this, whatever it was. The child will remember that you did that. So if they see
Abs-
you
yes.
continuing it through
Yes.
social
Yes.
media or whatever, they
Mhm.
will know that that was truly you, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I was going to say or tell you, that you should grace who you were and who you are, because I I I said what I went through as a man, and what I would believe would be a good advice for a man. But for a woman, what you just did, this is exactly like, keep your children on the focus over anything else, over your being hurt, your ego, and capitalize on who you are. That means that you, as a woman, you have the love for your children. Nobody can take that away. And capitalize on who you are. You are a nurturing, loving, mother. And regardless of the circumstances, you are still there, no matter what another person, or what that man or ex-husband trying to do. Is just always tap into who you are, and see your values, and understand that your love to your children, and don't let the circumstances turn that into something, dark. And this is what you have been doing. So that's
Yeah.
basically what I
Yeah.
would suggest to everybody, is like, other than, obviously, you don't need to even stay strong. You know why? Because you don't even have an option, so you don't need to
No.
worry about staying strong, because you are so in the corner. That's it. It's what else life can throw to you after going through these things,
Right.
like what, so to somehow pick yourself up, in the sense of, for having used this trauma drive, and use this as an essence of your life, to wake up in the morning, and to tell the life, okay, now bring it up.
Yes. Absolutely. It all starts the next morning, the second you put your feet on the floor. Thank you
It
so
starts the
much.
last night.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Johnny. It's been a great conversation with you, and we could have you back maybe for another part two later on when you've gone through, settling everything with your daughter and all that. You could tell us how it all went. We
Happy to.
appreciate, comebacks for the future, because we don't just have you one time, we have you two, three times to help people see what you've done, how you've done it, and that you're still standing strong. So this is what it's all
I'm
about.
we are stronger than ever, and I like to finish with that. My relationship with my daughter, somehow, and this is something what I love to share with other people. It's getting We already had a really solid relationship, but now it's rock solid. So
Yeah.
somehow I was able to somehow turn all of the terrible things, and really terrible we all going through, back to the point where there is just, she's just a really strong human being.
She's got your
And
spirit.
that's,
She's got your
yes, yeah,
spirit, your strength.
yeah,
And
yeah,
maybe
yes, that's true.
later on you could teach people what you've gone through and help
I
them.
am.
Your daughter could be a role model as well as she gets older, to say, my parents both loved me. My parents wanted the best for me. My parents
Mhm.
did everything they could to keep me happy. That's what we need children to say, and not say, my
Mhm.
mom beat me, my dad raped me, my
Yes.
dad this, my mom, this is what kids are saying today just to please one parent. Your daughter can
Exactly.
please
Yes.
both of you,
Yeah.
be praised for it. And this is what
Yeah.
we need, healthy kids for the future.
No,
But thank you
absolutely.
so much,
Yes. Thank
Johnny,
you. Thank
so
you.
much.
Mhm.
Don't jump off. We're going to say goodbye to our viewers until the next time. I can't remember who we have next week, but we will keep you updated. So alienated parents, grandparents, children out there, don't give up on each other. It is very important for family bonds to be connected. Uh, Over these decades, we have lost so many good parents, grandparents. And, there is a regrettable moment in our lives that just kills our hearts, knowing that we were rotten to these people at one time for no reason. So let's keep the love, the faith, and the hope, and, love both parents. So until next time, thanks again from Let's Talk Real Talk, from myself, Mary Auld-Kovacs, and unfortunately, Andy had to leave due to family circumstances. So until next time, we'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.